The salt spray of Port Blossom always tasted a little sharper than most Maine towns, a constant reminder of the restless sea. It matched my mood, I figured. 29, adrift and simmering with a quiet, burning anger. My name is Serafina Bellwether, and until a few weeks ago I was contentedly, if somewhat stubbornly, running Bellwether's Books, a tiny, overflowing haven of used paperbacks and forgotten stories tucked away on Mariner's Lane. I loved the smell of old pages, the weight of a well-loved volume in my hands, the quiet murmur of customers lost in a good book. Then Daniel Harding arrived and everything shifted. Daniel Harding was a developer, sleek and expensive, radiating the kind of manufactured charm that makes you instantly suspicious. He'd approached me with a proposal. He wanted to buy the building, tear down Bellwether's Books, and build a luxury condo complex overlooking the harbor. He offered a frankly obscene amount of money, enough to set me up for life, to finally pay off my mother's medical bills, to maybe, just maybe, escape the perpetual drizzle of Port Blossom. But the idea of losing Bellwether of seeing my little sanctuary erased was an insult I couldn't swallow. He was polite, insistent, and utterly, frustratingly confident. He kept mentioning a Mrs. Harding who would be very interested in my decision. He seemed to think he had an advantage, a silent partner pulling strings. I played the game, stalling for time, feigning consideration. My lawyer, a grizzled old sea captain named Silas, warned me, "Don't be swayed by promises, Miss Bellwether. Sometimes the sweetest honey hides the deadliest venom." I took his advice to heart, but the unsettling feeling that someone was manipulating me persisted. Then came the coffee. I'd agreed to meet him at the Salty Siren, a ridiculously touristy place with nautical-themed decor and aggressively cheerful service. He was impeccably dressed in a navy blazer and khakis, radiating an unsettlingly controlled energy. He was punctual, almost unnervingly so. As we settled into a booth overlooking the harbor, a man slid in across from me. He was younger, maybe late 20s, wearing a worn flannel shirt and jeans, the kind of guy who looked like he'd just stepped out of a story myself. "Wow, you look even better than your hiking pics," he said, a genuine, slightly breathless enthusiasm in his voice. I blinked, confused. "I don't hike. I don't even walk briskly." I just nodded and laughed it off, figuring he was just being friendly, a little too eager. He introduced himself as Liam. We started talking and he started referencing things that made absolutely no sense. "Your dog is so cute. What was his name again?" "Bentley." I didn't have a dog, never have. Then he mentioned how I told him I used to live in Colorado. Again, not me, I've never even been west of Kansas. The conversation continued, a bizarre, disjointed series of fabricated memories and shared experiences. It was like watching a meticulously crafted performance, and I was the unwitting audience. I started to feel a cold dread creeping through me. Something wasn't right. I began to scrutinize him, searching for a flicker of recognition, a shared connection. There was nothing. Finally, mid-latte, I stopped him. "Hey, just to clarify, what's my name?" He looked at me, a flicker of something, confusion, perhaps, or maybe even fear, crossed his face. "Jake," he said, a little hesitantly. "Friends, my name is not Jake." We just stared at each other for a solid 5 seconds before he burst out laughing. It wasn't a friendly laugh, but a nervous, almost hysterical one. "Seriously, you were trying to mess with me?" he asked, wiping a tear from his eye. "I'm so sorry, I was messaging two guys at once and mixed us up. The worst part, I thought you were Jake this whole time, but I was vibing too hard to stop." He explained everything. He'd been talking to Daniel Harding, the same Daniel Harding who'd been trying to buy my building. Harding had been using a double agent, a carefully cultivated persona to distract me to gauge my reaction. Harding had been feeding Liam, a freelance marketing guy, a fabricated narrative to infiltrate my world to create the illusion of a connection. It was a cynical, elaborate game, and I'd been completely played. I didn't rage. I didn't shout. Instead, a slow, deliberate anger began to build within me, a cool, simmering fire. I'd been underestimated, manipulated, and I wasn't going to let it go quietly. "You think you've won, Mr. Harding?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. "You think you've broken me?" I didn't tell him about the legal threats I'd already filed, the investigation into his shady dealings, the mounting evidence of his predatory behavior. I didn't need to. I simply smiled, a small, tight smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Let's just say," I said, picking up my latte and taking a slow sip, "that I've developed a very particular interest in understanding how things work." The next few weeks were a carefully orchestrated counterattack. I contacted Silas, who immediately launched a full-scale investigation into Harding's finances and business practices. We uncovered a trail of dubious contracts, shell corporations, and blatant violations of zoning regulations. Harding's empire began to crumble. Liam, the marketing guy, became a key witness, fueled by a healthy dose of legal pressure and a growing sense of guilt. He revealed Harding's entire scheme, detailing the manipulation, the fabricated narratives, the calculated attempts to destabilize my business. Harding, stripped of his credibility and facing legal ruin, eventually backed down. The condo project was scrapped and Bellwether's books remained, a quiet sanctuary nestled on Mariners Lane. I never forgot the lesson I'd learned. It wasn't just about protecting my building, it was about protecting my principles, my voice, my story. It was about recognizing that sometimes the greatest battles aren't fought with fists, but with knowledge, with persistence, and with a quiet, unwavering determination to stand your ground. The salt spray of Port Blossom still tasted a little sharper, but now it felt like a reminder, not of my isolation, but of my strength. And as I dusted a newly acquired first edition of Moby Dick, I knew that even the most cunning predator could be brought down by a simple, well-placed word, a word that said in the clearest possible terms, "Not today."